Alright, acquisition.gov, agricultural acquisitions. Part 400 reserved. Part 401, agricultural regulation system. Subpart 401, Purpose, Authority, Issuance. United States Department of Agricultural Acquisition Regulation provides codification, publication, uniform policy procedure for the acquisition contracting activities. USDA, for the purpose of the Agar, is to implement the federal acquisition regulation. Further implementation is needed to supplement with the federal acquisition regulation. When covered, needed to the subject matter not covered in the federal acquisition regulation. The agricultural AGR acquisition gate. AGR is itself the complete document it must be used in connection with federal acquisition regulation. Agar subsequent amendments issued in Title 5301, Title 40 U.S. Code 486, Senior Procurement Executive Delegated Authority transmittal to the Department of Acquisition Regulations. 401-104 applicability. The FAR and Agar apply with the USDA Act all acquisition supply services, including construction, obligating to appropriate the funds unless otherwise specified expected by the law. 401-105 issuance. 401-105-1 Publication Code Arrangement. Agar is a codified code of federal regulation. Chapter 4, Title 48, Federal Acquisition Regulation System Limited, Subchapter 1, Constitute Federal Acquisition Regulation, Part 400 through 499 has been assigned to the USA Office of the Federal Register. Agar is a subsequent change published in the daily issue Federal Register, culminated form of the CFR, electronic inform USDA, Department of Administrative Procurement's website. Section 553A2 of the Administrative Procedure provides expectational standard public rulemaking extent of the rules involved in the matter relating to agency management, personal public property loans, grants, benefits, contracts. Agar may be revived in the time in accordance with the rulemaking procedure of the Administrative Act of USDA. All required public comments procuring with the regulation Federal Register pursuant to the Office of Federal Procurement Policy. Title 41 U.S.A. Code 418B in FARs 1301, 4105, 401, 1052 Arrangement Regulations. Agar covers parallels FAR arrangement numbering system with subdivision below the subsection levels may not always correlate with the FAR's designated paragraph and subparagraphs 401-503C. 401-1053 copies of the Agar published with CFR form published in Superintendent Documents Government Printers Office of Washington D.C. 2482. Requests should be referenced in Chapter 4, Title 48. 401-170 Electronic Access Regulatory Information. USDA Procurement Website provides Agar Amendment Circular, USDA Contracting Desk Book, and USDA Procurement Policy and Guidelines. Subpart 401-2 Administration, 401-201 Maintenance of FARs, 401-201-1 Two Councils. USA represents Civil Agency Acquisition Council defined designated by the SBE, USDA Office of Contracting Procurement Policy Division, coordinated with the FAR's revision within the USDA. Subpart 101-3 Acquisition Regulations Policy 401-301 Policy. The SBE, subject to the authority of the Agar 401-103 and FARs 10301, may issue the published Department regulations together with the FARs constitute department-wide policies, procedures, solicitation provisions, subcontract clauses of the governing contracting process of the otherwise controlling the relationship between the USDA with including the contract activity, the contractor perspective of contracts. Each designated mission area, senior contractual official, the authorized issue, the authorized issue at the organizational level, the internal guidance which does not have significant effect beyond the internal operating procedure of the activity, significant cost, administrative impact, offer with the contractor, internal guidance, issue with the contracting activity not published with the Federal Register. Mission area contracting leadership shall ensure the guidance and procedure and instruction issue with the consistent policy provisions contained in regulation USDA contract desk book following the format, arrangement, and numbering system regulation extent practical contain no material duplicate, paraphrases, or inconsistent with the regulation are numbered and identified alphabetical sufficient chapter numbers as follow: the market and regulatory problems, MRP, research, education, economic, and food, nutrition, consumer services, natural resource, environment, NRE, farm production, conservation, FPAC, federal food safety inspection services, FSI, Reserve Department Administration Department, and DA and Department Management, and Reserved and Rural Development, RD. For 401-304, agents control compliance procedure, Agar system under direct oversight control. The SBA was reasonable to review issuances, all the department-wide acquisition regulation, published in the Federal Register, show the compliance with the FAR's Part 1. The SBE is also responsible to review issuance, unpublished department-wide internal guidance for the Agar system mission area, sending your contracting official with a representative responsible establishment, implementation, formal procedure, oversight control, unpolished internal guidance issued with the contracting activity implemented to FAR's Agar requirements. The procedure shall be subject to review approved by the SPE, with the SPE responsible for evaluating coverage of the Agar system to determine applicability. Other agents recommended coverage for the FAR's secretariated for inclusion in the FAR's Federal Acquisition Regulation. Recommendation revisions existing Federal Acquisition Regulation coverage for the new Federal Acquisition Regulation coverage shall be submitted by mission area senior contract official with the SBE. Further action. 401-370 exclusion. Subject to policy FARs 1.3. Certain USDA application policies procedures may be excluded with the Agar under appropriately justified circumstances, such as subject matter effective for the period less than 12 months, subject matter instituted with experimental basis for the reasonable period, acquisition procedure instituted with the interim basis comply with the requirement state regulation, executive order, office of management, budget circle, office of federal procurement policy letter. 401-371 USDA contracting desk book. The SBA may issue update USDA contracting desk book consistent with the policies FARs and the Agar following purpose of the communicate with department-wide policy procedure with guidance contracting activities. Delegate procurement official with the authority to make determination, take into account, implement policies FARs Agar with the established internal policies procedure for the interim basis prior to the incorporation. Agar directive department directive USDA contracting device desk book is only available in electronic format in the USDA procurement website. 401-372 Department activity subject to the policy FARs 1.3. The USDA with the time to time may issue the internal directives established procedure standard guidance method of the department performing duties, functions, operations. Such directives include the Department of Regulations, Department of Notice, and secretarial memorandums. Subpart 401-4 deviation of FARs and Agar. 401-402 policy with the authority to deviate with a provision FARs with the Agar submitted with the writing in advance the situation time permit. Each request the deviation contain the following statement of the deviation desired include the identification specified paragraph and numbers of the FARs and Agar. Reasonable deviation several the necessary would be best interest to govern the applicable name of the contract, identification, contract effective statement, the will of the deviation requested previously, and if so, circumstance previous request description intended to affect the deviation statement, the period of time of the deviation, neither pertinent background information contributed to the full understanding of the desired deviation. 401-403 individual deviation, individual cases of the deviation with the FAR of the or Agar the authorized with the essential of the necessary acquisition, special circumstance, the type of the decision, including the best interest of the government, except for the cost principle, the head of the contracting able to approve of the individual deviation, Agar over the after the coordination with the Office of the General Counsel within the SPE. The deviation as far as Agar that may be authorized individual contracting officers of the individual contracting officer, each copy each of the deviation of the supporting document provided with the SPE with the deviation FAR shall not be made unless such actions authorized with the SPA, with the consultant, with the OGC, with the other appropriate officer, based on the written justification stating clearly special circumstances involved. 401-404 class deviation. The deviation as far as Agar with the nearly class contract with the request of authority to deviate with it submitted with the writing of the SPA with approval of the SPE may authorize class with the deviation of the FARs consult with the chairperson, the civilian agency acquisition council, the urgency precluded with the consolation, the SPE with the subsequent with the chairperson of the Civilian Agency Acquisition Council of the deviation, including with the circumstance of which it was required. 401-6 with the Carrier Development Contracting Area Authority and Responsibility. 401-601 General with the authority responsibility vested with the Secretary of Manager of the USDA with the acquisition function delegated with the Assistant Secretary of the Administrator of the SPA. Broad authority includes but is not limited to the following responsibilities prescribed with the detrimental acquisition policy regulation. Proceed with the taking the necessary action with the consistent with the policy and regulation. Proceed with the respect with the purchase of the contract relief for the other transaction. Designate contracting officer with the established clear line with the contracting authority evaluating, monitoring performance USDA acquisition system, managing, enhancing career development of the acquisition workforce that participate in the development of government-wide acquisition policy regulation standard that determine specifically whether the government-wide performance standards that should be established and applied with determining any of the area of the department unique stand with developing unique department-wide standards. Certifying Secretary of the Acquisition System meets approved standard of the SPE with may delegate specified with the contracting authority responsible to maintain related to acquisition functions. regulations unless prohibited by the FRA or the AGAR or other applicable statute regulation. The SBA with may delegate specified with authority to make the determination or to implement the policy and procedure of the federal acquisition regulations. Such delegation should be written but not published. Such delegations may be by HCA and authority designated by the SPE. 401602 contracting officers. 401602 ratification authorized commitments. Ratification may be seen with a documented action taken to authorize office official approval to sanction previously unauthorized commitment. Unauthorized commitment, the meaning of the agreement that made by with the government representative who lacked the authority to enter within the contract behalf of the government. Procedure in accordance with the USDA contracting dashbook. 401603. 401603 selection, appointment, determination, appointment of contracting officers. 401603 general, the SPE designates the contracting authority to extend the authorized, give them written delegation, acquisition authority, appointment of qualified individuals as contracting order officer in accordance with the section and appointment procedures stated in the USDA contracting desk book. Alright, subpart 4011, purpose and authority. The United States Department of Agricultural Acquisition Regulation for the certification, publication, uniform policy, procedure for the acquisition contract within the USDA for the purpose of the Agar to implement the federal acquisition regulation. For their implementation of these, supplement the file with a cover to need with the subject matter, no cover for the federal acquisition regulation. Agar is not by itself a complete document. It must be in conjunction with the FARs. 401103, authority Agar supplement amendment issued within Title 5 under 301, Title 40 U.S. Code 486C with the senior procurement executive, the delegate with the transmit with the Department acquisition regulation. 401104, applicable with the FARs Agar, apply with the USDA acquisition supply of the services, including construction, obligate with the appropriated fund unless otherwise specified expected by the law. 401105 issuance. 401105 issuance, public code and arrangement. Agar is codified. Okay, let's go back. We've read 401 now. Let's read 402.